Well, part of the reason I ran was fiscal, and, well, actually, that's a majority of the reason, and solving problems, and this is a big one before us. Jene gave some good examples. One of the items we heard in testimony, though, it was interesting. One of the bankers testified that he had a loan, and if they would have gone through him for the loan, the fee would have been $130,000. So, of course, he lost the loan to the Farm Credit because they didn't have to pay that fee. I can't imagine what the loan was for. But it's just a matter of fairness. You know, if two people come into the Register of Deeds office and you have a service that you need, you expect to pay the same portion across the board. So what we're trying to do is to come up with a solution, an equation to make it fair and reasonable. And both sides are negotiating right now, which is interesting. I think that's a lot of times when you came up with the best solutions is to have people in the industry working out the problems because they know it. And so there are meetings going on with the realtors and the bankers and the county leadership, and we're just looking for a solution that works for all of us, the best solution possible. Sorry.
The mortgage registration tax started, I think, in the 1920s, and it's levied on people that borrow money and file a mortgage, and it's $26 for every thousand, or 0.026%. So if you move into your home, file a mortgage, you pay the fee. If you refinance with a different lender, in most cases, I believe you pay the fee again. With a lot of the refinancing that's been going on, you see some churn there, and it's really hard to explain. I've told our county commissioners and other county commissioners that it's difficult to, it's a hard tax to defend and tell people why, if you're just refinancing, you're filing a few pieces of paper, why do I have to pay that large amount of money? With that said, counties have the obligation to run the Register of Deeds department. They have the obligation of, if you hand them a piece of paper, they file it. You come back any time over the next 100 years and request that piece of paper, they've got to give you a copy of it. And so that's not I mean, it's really important that we do a good job there. But what we've seen in counties all across the state is it affects them much differently, and it affects our larger counties much differently than it does medium or smaller sized counties. Primarily because if you have a large shopping center that refinances, that brings in a bunch of money to a large county. I mean, large shopping centers are usually located in larger counties. So the question is, with the bankers that are saying the system doesn't work, they're at a disadvantage over a federal lending institution. You've got the realtors that are involved as well. And so it's not one person that's just saying, hey, I've got an idea. And so you've got people that are working to make this happen. And so we're going to pass something. And what I've been trying to work on and talk to people about is that if we're going to pass something, how can we come up with a system that still allows the counties to recoup their costs for running the Register of Deeds and associated costs with that in a system that would be more equitable for what those costs really are. If we look at a per-page filing fee, and Miami County has just been great about providing some information a lot faster and a lot than some of the other counties, then I think we can phase out the mortgage registration fee, phase in a per-page fee, so anything that's filed with the county is probably going to pay more of its share of that and not cause disruption in county budgets. And, you know, they'll say that, you know, it's going to lead to property tax increases. If we can do it in such a way that one phases out, one phases in, I think that's a reasonable solution. So anyway, we're working hard to try and bring some folks together, and looks like we're probably going to have to force a solution, because I don't think, because of some of the larger counties, I don't think some of the groups are going to be able to agree. So we'll see if we can get that done this next week.
I'm often impressed by the quality of legislators that we have and that we send to Topeka. So, all these issues that I've received in questions are tough issues, and I really appreciate the way you guys are handling them and addressing them. One of the issues that came up was in regards to unfunded pension liabilities. So one of the questions was what steps are being taken to address the enormous levels of unfunded pension liabilities at the state?
Actually, the news is good. We, or better, I shouldn't say perfect, but we've worked on, in the last couple of years, restructuring how to get ahead of our unfunded liability. Currently, what we've done, if things stay predictable as much as possible, we forecast that we'll be at 80% unfunded liability in 7 years, which is pretty enormous when you look at where we've come from in the last couple of years. I was always somewhat discouraged when I would see who led the effort in the House, Stephen Johnson, our chair of pensions. When I'd see him and he would give me an update of what our unfunded liability was, and they'd get new figures, and it was always higher. I can't even think of what those numbers are now, but at one time we thought it was $4 billion to $6 billion. It went to 8, over 10, and of course this is extrapolated over a period of years. But if we did nothing in about 15 years, we would have had our own bubble that would have burst and caused the state to be unable, basically, to be financial solvent. We would have not been able to tax our way out of it. We would not have been able to pay our anyone that was retired. But we've addressed it. We're still working on it. Yesterday we had a bill in the House dealing with the parameters of what we had passed in the guaranteed amounts, the percent of return. And we changed that slightly yesterday, but the good news was the opponents that came to the hearing that thought that it would be bad 15, and that we're talking 15 years from now, how this mechanism works, but that it would have been a bad thing. After they discerned the work of the committee, they decided that they became neutral and really became proponents. We had very few votes against the bill yesterday. And it's a very technical bill, but what it does is it sets the floor and the ceiling for the amount of increase that would come by way of a COLA in the years to come when our unfunded liability is determined to be at a solvent rate. So anyway, we are tracking well. I think we're making the right decisions. It's been, by and large, even though we have debates, it's been a partisan effort, but the governor has really pushed the issue and kind of held our feet to the fire to get it done. So.